Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of America Tonight. This week I'm here with Melissa Russell of the Winchester Star. Thank you for being here, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to be talking about a newer issue in American politics, one raised primarily by President Donald Trump over the past couple of weeks: fake news. Now, this is an issue that the president has raised many times, both on Twitter and in person. Since his inauguration on January 20th, the president has either called the media fake news, false news, or failing on Twitter, or done the same for a specific news organization an amazing 26 times, as you can see here, as of February 23rd. As of that same day, which is the day that the show was taped, he had only been in office for 35 days. So that's approximately 3 tweets calling the media fake, false, or failing for every 4 days he's been in office. Now, that's not even accounting for the many times he had made similar comments on the media in person. He has scrutinized both the general media and specific organizations, including CNN, CBS, ABC, NBC, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. This is extremely unusual for a president, as the Constitution does guarantee the right to a free press, and while he is not violating the Constitution in any way, he is instructing people to not place any trust in these highly respected news organizations. So now, Melissa, as a journalist, how do you feel about the president calling these highly trusted news organizations false, failing, or fake, without providing any evidence that they have falsified or otherwise mistreated information given to the public?
Well, I think that's a very scary and dangerous thing for a person in any sort of position of authority to do, particularly the President of the United States. I know in recent history that is not something that people have come to expect from the leader of the free world. They may be angry at an article or bar a particular reporter from coverage. They may, have issue with coverage. There's, people have done things like, leaks or plant false stories. But to delegitimize the entire idea of free media is new. That's a new and very scary thing for American democracy.
Okay, do you think that this distrust in the media in any way endangers our constitutional right to a free press?
I think it endangers democracy. I think it goes beyond the right of a free press. I think that to dismiss, well, first of all, the media is a very handy umbrella term for everything and everybody. Right. So the media is a wide range of sources. It includes the Breitbart sources that he likes. It includes Fox News that he likes, but it does include, legacy publications like the New York Times and the Washington Post that have a long history of just being the standards that everyone aspires to in terms of journalism. Right. So, I think it's a problem also to talk about the media as if it's all one thing together.
Because it's not one.
Well, the Winchester Star is a very different type of publication than the New York Times. Right. But we're all under this big umbrella. So I would imagine he would have an issue with the local publications as well as the big publications. But we all serve to provide information that people need in order to make the decisions of their lives. Right. So even on the local level, for the Winchester Star, for any local paper, we are charged with providing information about how your local government works or how your local town works. Right. And if people don't respect the job we're doing, if people don't trust the job we're doing, they can't make important decisions that impact their own lives. They don't know how to vote for a school committee member. Right. So if you take it at that small local level and then you blow it up large.
And here on local television too.
And here on local television, sure. So if people don't trust the sources of that information, it works its way up the information chain. They don't trust. Who do you trust? How do you make decisions?
Right. Where do you get your information?
Where do you get your information, and who can you trust so you can make good decisions? So I think that just undermines the whole process of democracy itself.
Okay. In a press conference last week, Donald Trump was asked a question by Jake Turks, a reporter for the magazine, Ami magazine. It's a Jewish magazine, and so when Trump deemed the question too hard and not friendly enough, He called the question repulsive and told the reporter to sit down, and when the reporter tried to respond, Trump silenced him, saying, quote, quiet, quiet, quiet,
right.
unquote. Is this way of treating a reporter unfair?
Oh, I think it's unfair to not only the reporter, I think it's unfair to the readership of that magazine. It's very disrespectful to
right.
every other reporter in that room. You know, it's shocking, right. actually, yeah. to see someone, he didn't listen to the question. The reporter never right. had an opportunity to ask the question. Yeah. He just was, anticipating what he thought would be a hostile yeah. question and was refusing to answer it.
And the question that we're talking about, he was talking about anti-Semitism in America, and he had made it very clear before the question mm-hmm. that he was not accusing President Trump of any anti-Semitism or anything like that.
He went to great pains
right.
to say.
He actually...
Right. We know you are the grandfather of Jewish children.
Right.
He really did, but he didn't...
And then Mr. Trump, he was like, he called the question repulsive,
right.
and then he says, I'm the least anti-Semitic
person, I think he said, right?
Yeah, and I'm the least racist person you'll ever meet.
Right, and nobody was accusing him of anything.
Right, nobody was accusing. In fact, he was making it very clear that he wasn't accusing him.
I think the question was, there's been a huge amount of anti-Semitic activity in the country since the inauguration. Are you going to address that? Are you going to denounce it?
That's what he was trying to say, but he never got to finish saying it even.
So did he find that question repulsive, that he's being asked to denounce it, or did he just anticipate that he was being called anti-Semitic, do you think?
And the other unusual thing that he did there was another reporter was trying to ask a question, and he silenced that reporter as well, mm-hmm. leading up to the question. And he actually said, I'm looking for a friendly reporter.
Right.
Who, look how friendly this reporter is going to be. Mm-hmm. And you don't ask for a friendly question in a press conference usually, right?
You get what you get.
Right.
If I think part of the issue is he's not a politician, and he ran on that, and he is a CEO, and he makes the rules of his company.
Right.
He's in a different format now, and is not accustomed to having to serve the needs of the people. He's accustomed to quite the opposite. He doesn't see himself, I don't think, as a public servant. I think he sees himself more as the sheriff who's come in, and he's gonna make the rules and set down the law, make America great again. And you know what? He was elected to do that by a lot of people.
Right.
So if the way he is responding to the press may play really well with his supporters.
Right.
Yeah. Rude and unacceptable as it may be to people in the media, it probably gets a lot of cheers from the people who like the way he's managing himself.
Right. I'd like to discuss one of Mr. Trump's tweets in particular. So I have it right here, actually. What it says is, on February 17th, President Trump tweeted, the fake news media, parentheses, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy, it is the enemy of the American people. How do you, as a journalist, respond to that kind of villainization of...
Yeah, I think that's very frightening. I think that's the kind of talk that dictators use.
Right.
He's obviously taking a page out of that playbook, and we've heard him support, these are the people he admires, are the people who have, complete control of their circumstances, and the media. It's something we are not accustomed to hearing. Obviously, I don't agree that the press is the enemy of American people. I think the press exists to serve the American people.
Okay. In a time where the integrity of the media is being so often questioned, how can news organizations overcome this intense scrutiny they're subjected to? When he calls them fake news, what should they do?
I think you have to push back. I think it could wind up being journalism's finest hour. Ultimately, I am heartened by what I see in terms of people calling a lie a lie and a falsehood a falsehood. I think even the term falsehood is a little weak, but
Right.
People need to speak truth to power, and that's what journalism is about.
Right.
Holding people accountable and that's the tool of journalism, is to ask questions and seek answers.
And alternative facts are not facts.
Alternative facts is a dressed up term for lies. It's an Easter bonnet on a lie. Yes.
Okay, so some people have recently been questioning whether Trump should even be allowed to use social media as the president of the United States. Like, so the president's office has its own Twitter account, and the staff tweets about what the president is actually doing. But these tweets that we're showing you today don't actually come from his presidential Twitter account. They come from his personal Twitter account.
Yeah.
So do you believe that, would it be appropriate to impose such restrictions to limit the damage done through social media?
I guess I have a couple of thoughts about that. One is, I wonder in terms of security, national security, everything is hackable. I would imagine that's something that people have a lot of concerns about, that if he's tweeting from his own, his own personal phone or his own personal account, what's vulnerable in terms of...
If someone hacked Donald Trump's Twitter, they can do anything. I mean, so many people follow him and...
Well, isn't that what people got angry at Hillary about?
Right, exactly. Yeah, like
private servers and all that. So I do wonder, if people were very angry and upset about that, where's the outrage on this side? But at the same time, I mean, it is a window into his mind that is transparent, and in a time where they're shutting down access to information on the White House website is scrubbing all mention of climate data and
in fact,
EPA.
There's a news story that came out today that, I mean, even in schools now, I believe it was the Idaho school committee, like in the House, has voted to take climate change out of the curriculum.
Well, it's very worrisome, and I think that's how things trickle down.
And that goes along with taking away information.
Absolutely. So maybe we need him to keep tweeting, so that journalists doing their job can say, this isn't true, this is false, or this is, another example of something, that's going on. I don't know what the benefit at this point is to shut it down, other than for national security purposes, which was probably a legitimate concern.
Okay. Among the news organizations Trump has not criticized at all is Fox News. In fact, he has praised Fox News while criticizing other news organizations. So here we have another tweet where he said, "Congratulations to Fox News for being #1 in inauguration ratings. They were many times higher than, all caps, fake news. CNN, public is smart, !" So is it a problem for him to be picking and choosing his news sources based? So, I mean, Fox News is seen as a conservative news outlet. They lean right.
Can't really argue with that, sure.
So is it unfair of him to be scrutinizing all these other media organizations and not Fox because they may agree with his political views? President
Obama didn't care for Fox, and I believe was not interviewed by Fox because he didn't agree with how they, with their agenda, which was, and I use the word agenda purposefully.
Right, an agenda versus bias.
Agenda versus bias, correct. So bias is just sort of implicit in human behavior. You can favor things over other things, but if you're fair-minded, you try to strike a balance.
Right.
We're acknowledging bias because we all have bias. Agenda is something a little more, purposeful that I believe, and I don't think anyone could contradict it. That the Fox News company aligns itself with the Republican points. Right. I think that's pretty evidentiary.
And
so that they would be friendlier to a Republican president, regardless of if it's Mr. Trump or another one, isn't a big surprise.
Right.
So friendlier to. So whether or not it's fair or unfair, I think it's not new that a president would have preferences.
Of course.
What's new is attacking.
The other one.
The other, yeah. So
President Obama certainly didn't call Fox fake.
He never called Fox fake, but he did find them unfriendly and preferred not to be interviewed by them. So that's his privilege, I suppose.
Okay. This past week, there was a bit of an international incident with the country of Sweden. Trump, at a rally in Florida, mentioned a supposed attack in Sweden that never occurred, which confused the nation and left the prime minister demanding an explanation. So it turned out that he had been talking about a story that aired on Fox News the night before about a rise in crime in Sweden and attributed that spike to refugees. And he was talking about his travel ban and keeping refugees out because of, he said, look what's happening in Sweden, look what's happening in other countries.
Right.
So, but there was no terror attack in Sweden. There was no event in Sweden at all.
There was nothing that had happened.
In fact, news
Friday
organizations,
night.
look, Friday night, the biggest thing that happened was someone set themselves on fire.
Gee.
That was, and they didn't die. Nobody died Friday night.
There was no terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it turned out he had been talking about that story. However, though it is true that Sweden's crime rate is rising recently, their crime rate is still relatively low. And the data that he's talking about shows no connection to refugees because it doesn't show who committed the crimes. It just shows that there are more crimes being committed. And this isn't the first time he's made public comments based solely on what he saw on Fox News. He tweeted about the release of Chelsea Manning, a prisoner who was believed to be, he called her a traitor.
He called her a traitor because I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something about President Obama, right?
Because she had been released by Obama.
Well, and she mentioned that she called him weak.
Right.
For some, I don't remember for what reason, but
and he was saying that she was ungrateful because criticizing the person
sure.
released her, but just that hour, the same hour he tweeted that, Fox News aired a story, and the headline, their banner headline, was "Ungrateful Traitor."
Right.
So it's not the first time he's gone off what Fox is saying. So for a president to make these comments solely based on what he sees on cable news is extremely unusual. And are these comments inappropriate for a president to make, to just choose one news organization and make public statements based off what they say?
It's a great question. It's so strange that I don't even know how to say, is it fair or not fair? It's very strange behavior, but I think it's all, windows into how he sees the world and how he gets information and how, our president educates himself about what's going on in the world. And I think, what we do know is that he's not a person who reads. Doesn't read newspapers, doesn't read books. He likes to watch TV. He likes to get his information from television. So, it's sort of transparent. I mean, he just takes information in and spits it back out again. I'm not sure how to, it's so strange.
Right.
And
presidents get their information from briefings and reading things.
You'd think.
Usually,
most of the time, I do think most of the time we have come to expect that the leader of the free world is a person who is looking to be educated all the time and to become informed and better informed and relies on advisors and educates himself. And this is new. This is different.
Right. And so he was at a rally when he was talking about that. And so, again,
that's right, too. It was a campaign rally. So he was just using things to get the crowd excited.
Right.
Right.
And so, about the rally itself, is it unfair for a president to be spending time on things like, we have this stack of tweets, and this, I can hardly pick it up. It's not just his, it's not his tweets.
Stack of tweets.
It's not just his tweets, it's his tweets about news. So he's tweeted way more than this. He's tweeted a ton. And he's spending his time in Florida at campaign rallies when he was just elected. Is that unfair to spend his time on campaigning and tweeting when he's president?
Yes, I think so. I think it's unfair to the people who elected him and supported him, who are expecting him to be working. I don't think there's a way to spin it that isn't. What are you doing? Why are you still doing this? I guess is my question. And I think
he's not letting go of the campaign.
he's still, talking about the Electoral College and how many people
And it's
supported him,
interesting.
and he wants to see a lot of people calling his name, and that makes him feel
And about the
feel good.
Electoral College, it's interesting because Trump is calling these news organizations fake, but he himself has stated many falsehoods.
Yes.
And in fact, he talks about the Electoral College. He says he got 306 electoral votes. He said that many times. He said in his press conference. He said in his tweets. He got 304.
It means a lot to him. The number is, as we see in ratings, talking about ratings and polls.
And it's interesting to see. He's calling these organizations fake. And in these, one of these tweets actually, he said 306 when he's at the same time he's calling a news organization fake.
Yeah.
He's saying and false. He's saying things that are false.
I think what we see here is a person who, truth and facts are kind of, slippery things.
Right.
And maybe
They can be twisted.
They can be twisted. He uses the language of advertising.
Right.
With what he talks about, like everything, everything is in superlatives, but he chooses small words, familiar words, same words. Everything is tremendous or great or sad.
Of his speeches, and he doesn't speak in big words.
No, but
he speaks in 4-syllable words at most.
And I think that's purposeful. I think that's maybe the nature of his business.
And he says the same big, meaningful words over and over again. Tremendous, very fantastic, very.
All these things you learn in
hateful.
School, not to use intensifiers like very, because they have no meaning, right?
Right.
But those are his words of choice, and I think it's advertising language. It's puffing. It's to put a shine on something when he really doesn't have anything to say.
Right.
So that's the language that he's using when he talks to his crowds, when he talks and when he tweets. Yeah.
And we talk about alternative facts. Kellyanne Conway went on Fox, or I believe it was CNN. She's
been on. I think it was Jake Tapper on CNN. Yeah.
She was with Jake Tapper, and she's talking about Trump statements, and he asks her a question, and she tells him that he's giving alternative facts. Alternative facts.
It was Spicer, I think she said, used alternative, or he gave facts, and it was not whatever it was. Yeah.
Alternative facts, though, that's his language for lies, like you said before. And alternative facts, they're not facts, but like we said before, he likes to twist things. The truth is slick.
Well, I don't know if he's even thinking about it in a sophisticated way that I'm going to lie about this. I think it's just the language of, that he's comfortable with. I think the people around him, like Kellyanne Conway, know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And they're very good at it.
Right.
And I think maybe what we're seeing now, that might have been the alternative facts piece and the Bowling Green Massacre piece. I think people are finally starting to call them out and say, you're lying, which is something people really weren't comfortable saying at first, because we had to learn how to respond to this kind of thing.
And we talk about the massacre. He's the Swedish incident that didn't happen.
Right.
And then there's the Bowling Green Massacre, which didn't happen.
Nope.
And there's the Atlanta terrorist attack, which there hasn't been a terrorist attack in Atlanta in over a decade.
Well, since,
And so we talk about these things, and they're just truly false.
Yes.
There's no truth. The closest thing that happened in Bowling Green was some people were associated with ISIS, and they were caught trying to ship weapons.
They were there to do, yes, exactly.
But there was nothing.
Nothing happened.
There was not even nobody died. Nobody even got hurt.
Nothing happened. Right.
There was no incident. People just got caught trying to cause something that wasn't.
Right. So I think what we're seeing is, a lot of, calling it like throwing sand in your face kind of thing. Like if they throw enough at you, you're confused and you're trying to manage what's been thrown at you. But meanwhile, all this other stuff is happening at the side, and I think that's pretty nefarious.
Right.
And maybe the media is wising up to that kind of thing. So you can have part of your team addressing the sand in the face, but other people also paying attention to what's going on in the background.
So we've one more really important tweet from. It was from February 6th.
Okay.
So he tweeted on February 6th that, quote, any negative polls are fake news, just like CNN, ABC, NBC polls in the election. Sorry, people want border security and extreme vetting. And this was after some polls showing that people were not happy with his border security and vetting policies. So when he says that any negative polls are fake news, that's a problem.
That's a great tweet, because there's a lot of information, may I take this?
Yes.
To unpack when you look at it. And I think part of it is, if we start with the end of it, people want border security and extreme vetting. He's not wrong.
Right. People
they elected him because this is what he said. So I think we have to keep that in our minds, that he's not wrong about that. His supporters, people want border security and extreme vetting. He was also right when it came to polls.
Right.
Because everybody got it wrong. Nobody saw him coming. So, negative polls are fake news. Can I be charitable and think he's saying they got it wrong, so why would you pay attention to them? If I unpack this, I think that's what it's like, is parsing it out there. I think that's what he's saying. He's not wrong about any of that. And I think, like we said, he uses the same words over and over again, not big words, easy words. So these are his words.
Right.
Fake news, those are his words.
I go through these tweets. Fake news.
Right.
Fake news. Fake news.
Right.
Fake news.
That's those, he repeats and repeats and repeats. And if you think about any of the advertising slogans, they're small words that are repeated over and over and over again until you know them, until it's part of our language. So he's the advertiser in chief, let's say that.
Yeah.
And he uses the language of advertising and the techniques of advertising probably really effectively. Whether he's doing it intentionally or not, I think that's what we see here.
Right. And so, he's calling these news organizations fake.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, obviously you don't know President Trump, but...
Have not had the pleasure.
But as a journalist, what's your best guess at why he's doing this? Why is he calling them fake?
Again, you throw sand in somebody's face, they're going to be very busy with the sand in the face, so they can't see what you're doing. So, and delegitimizing your enemy is, he's declared the press as the enemy. And I shouldn't say the press, the media. This is how old-fashioned I am, that I think in terms of newspapers. But if he declares the media the enemy, then he deals with them as an enemy. He doesn't have to respond to their questions because they're the enemy.
Right.
It's easier, isn't it?
Right, it is.
Yeah, other than doing the hard work.
Right.
It also, if people have their suspicions, all these things we didn't even talk about, all the real fake news that's out there, that's confusing people.
I'll mention that in a minute, but...
Okay, but fake news that does confuse people, because there is fake news.
Fake news is a
real problem, right? So you're putting everything in the same pile, everything on the same level. Right. It's confusing to people. You're asking people to really understand the differences, and I don't think all people do.
Right. And the thing is, they're talking about him every day. I have times from today here, the New York Times.
And he loves that. He loves the attention.
He likes to be talked about, but he doesn't like any negative attention towards him.
Well, he wants to control the image, he wants to control the story, and I think that's the history of Donald Trump and media. I don't think there's anything new, and I think if anyone was expecting he would change as president, they're disappointed.
And a lot of people were shocked when he won. The polls said Hillary was going to win.
Absolutely. So he was correct when he said the polls are wrong.
Right.
He was right, and the polls were wrong.
Right. But the thing is, a lot of people, when they try to figure out what happened, why were the polls wrong, why did he win, it's because everyone just had these ideas pounded into their head. He's on the front page every day.
Right.
He is now, he was then.
Right.
He said the most controversial things.
Right.
That if any other candidate had said them, if Hillary Clinton had said the things that he said,
amazing,
she would have been destroyed.
Sure.
She would have been ripped apart.
People were ripping her apart, and we're destroying her, and we're working very hard at that too. So I don't know. There's going to be books written about all of this.
I've already seen books.
Yeah, with people just kind of dissecting what happened.
But what a lot of people think is just he got
mine.
So much attention that people just believed it.
I think your next interview should be with people who love Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And just have them talk about what it is that they support, that they liked. because I think that's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah. So lastly, what can journalists like you to do to ensure that news does stay honest and true? Because even though Trump may not be criticizing the right organizations all the time, like the New York Times is not fake news.
Right.
CNN is not fake news.
Correct.
They are not fake news.
Correct.
But fake news is a real problem. Fake
Absolutely.
news is a real thing. There is news that goes around that is not true. It's full of things that aren't true.
And
I'm
it's
sure
very easy to produce fake news.
Yes, it's
Yes.
very. I mean, you just have to set up a website and.
Sure.
I mean, there was an ad campaign recently that I was reading about for a movie, and it got taken down because it was making up newspapers and having these newspapers give it like reviews that
Right.
were really good. And that's a problem because then, I mean, that was an advertising campaign. But
Right.
when you start making up stories about real people and real things, that
Yeah.
has major effects.
Well, did you
So,
have you heard of the War of the Worlds, that broadcast? I think it was 1938,
mhm.
and Orson
Right.
Welles, did this whole broadcast, and it was very realistic.
Right, there was a
And
radio broadcast.
It was a radio
if
broadcast.
you're listening. So, what
Well,
happened?
it was a story based
Right.
on H.G. Wells that the
And he-
Martians had landed in New Jersey
Right, and he said at the beginning that it was a story.
several times through.
Right,
But it was also created as a news story. You had
Right.
a musical program that was interrupted with news announcements that became more and more. It's really kind of frightening. If you've never heard it, you can find it.
Right.
But it became more and more frightening with sound effects and all these things. And a number of people just went into panic mode
people
because
panicked
they
when
believed it.
they thought the
because
Martians had landed.
they did, but they believed it because it was news. It was presented as
Right.
news. So here you go, maybe the first example of fake news. You could see how it frightened people.
Right.
It got them in a way that their imagination. Maybe it was a great story or something
Right.
that just threw them in a panic. They totally believed it. And so the next day, if you're like, Martians, really, you
Right.
believe that, but people did, and I think it's all about.
And it's really not that hard to create fake news.
It's not. So I don't think. I guess
the
my
problem.
point is that it isn't a new thing.
Yeah.
And people are susceptible.
And the problem
it.
is, if I wanted to create fake news, I could do it right
You're
now.
a smart person. You
I-
absolutely could.
I could print out some newspaper paper, and I could write on it the Winchester Times, and I could publish whatever I wanted. There are people that would believe it.
I think you'd be good at it.
Thank you. So there was a case a couple months ago where a man went into a pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C., and he lived in another state. He drove pretty far to get there,
Right.
actually. And so he had read a fake news story. It was presented as a news story, but it was not true. And it was saying that so the story was that Hillary Clinton, it was during the election. The election was still happening, I believe. So Hillary Clinton was running a secret crime ring in the basement of this pizzeria.
Right.
This man, he reads the story and he's
I think it was, and it involved children, so
Right,
it triggered
yes.
something in his mind like to help these
Right.
children. Yeah.
Right, so he believes he needs to fix this.
Right.
So he goes in with an assault rifle and a handgun,
Right.
an AR-15 style rifle, and he just walks in and fires several rounds into the pizza place.
Right.
And luckily, I don't believe anyone
He
was
didn't
hurt.
hurt anybody.
But someone could have been hurt. and
Absolutely.
Someone could have been killed.
He could have been killed too.
Yeah.
It could have been a
It could have been
a
much
massacre.
worse. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could have been much worse. And it's all because of that fake news story. Someone, I don't know, they wanted to make a joke, they wanted to influence the election.
Well, I think they just wanted to paint Hillary Clinton in the
In a
most
bad way.
despicable way
I mean,
possible.
crime
yeah.
against children.
Sure.
That's
Can you think of any more despicable than
Right.
that? Right.
right. I mean,
But
crime is
then you
terrible
wonder, like,
and
well,
children-
why would a person believe that? And that's. I think we went down a road. But your question was like, what do journalists
Right.
do
How
to
can
combat
journalists
it? I
make
think,
sure the
yeah.
news stays not fake?
I think being honest, an honest person, being very transparent
Right.
about. I do get troubled by the whole anonymous source business. I think that raises people's suspicion. I know that's been going on a lot with the Trump administration because people are talking without attribution, and I do worry about that because it's easy to say, well, they made that up. They don't have any names, So I do think that's problematic. And yeah, I think, I mean, this is a small town. I've worked for other papers, and on very rare occasion, I've been accused of, well, you're all fake or something. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. It's just because everything trickles down.
Right.
And
because if you call the media fake, you're probably
I'm the media, right? As close as you're gonna. You're the media too, my friend. Just wait. No, and not in any frightening way or anything. But and my response is, I'm a human being with a soul, and and if you find anything, please let me know.
Right.
And generally, people back off because they're talking to a person, and you're a person.
Right.
It's easy to demonize media as this evil force, but I do think that journalists have to be super careful.
Right.
Have to have.
And these organizations he's calling fake, they need to be really careful. Because
they do?
They can't let his claims become
That's
justified.
right. And they have to devote a lot of energy
and they do.
To it. Well, they do, but there's also a lot of things going on in journalism in terms of, downsizing and cuts and, newsrooms aren't as big as they were and editing isn't maybe as, the staffing isn't what it used to be and that kind of thing. So I think, when you have a weakened media and this person who's bent on destabilizing it further, it's not a good combination. So I guess it's up to individual journalists to just, be that much more thorough and careful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Melissa.
Oh, it was fun. Thanks for asking me.
This was Melissa Russell of the Winchester Star on the 10th episode of America Tonight. These were the opinions of Miss Russell herself and not the company. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay. Hello, this is Aiden Rood, your host on America Tonight. We'd like to apologize for a couple of editing mistakes from last week involving the credits and editing of images. We are dedicated to making sure that these mistakes will be fixed before the episode is made available to the public on YouTube and other sources and before it is re-aired. We thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed America Tonight this week.